A few people in the clubhouse room.
Fantastic. Okay, so
already 22 people in the clubhouse room, which is great for just opening.
Awesome. Okay, guys, so welcome. We're sort of mid-January. I can't believe actually that we're already so far into the month already, but that's pretty exciting. And this is our networking group that we do every fortnight, and then in the interim we do serviced accommodation question and answers. So today we are continuing the theme of what to do with your goals. So some of us were quite organized and had some goals set before the end of the year, but I know a lot of us are still kind of trying to solidify and clarify and put those goals into a plan of action. So I'm really excited. Some of you already know Paul very, very well here, Paul Merrick. And he's going to help us talk about, with those goals, how to get them into a business plan, and not just any old business plan, but a property specific business plan. And I know all of us can agree that it's kind of sometimes a little bit overwhelming to start with the business plan. So hopefully he's going to help that, and he's going to alleviate those fears and give us a path to help with those. So initially, so I'll just introduce myself and then we'll jump straight in. So Emma Howitt, Pure Abodes Property. I've been in property, I'm a real baby, just over 4 years. And I started off with rent-to-rent serviced accommodation. I was really fortunate, that went very well. And I sold that at the beginning of last year. And then last year started a development project, so converted an old school into an apart hotel, and that has now been up and running for a number of months. And I feel really, really fortunate to be jumping into 2023 with lots of new plans and big things to achieve. So Paul, please, would you mind introducing yourself, and then we'll jump into giving everyone a little bit of feedback. And also, guys, if you've got any questions, just raise your hand or also pop them into the chat, and we'll keep an eye on those. So yeah, over to you, Paul.
Well, good afternoon to you. I'm slightly self-conscious because I look much better on Clubhouse, because my photograph on Clubhouse is about 11 years old. So I'm very self-conscious of being this little old man sitting in front of a screen for a moment. I spent my formative years kind of doing, and met my wife in hospital radio, and I always used that old adage that I had the perfect face for radio. So being consciously and looking at a camera is making me ever so slightly self-conscious. So you'll be pleased about that, Emma, because normally I'm a confident stroke arrogant little sod, but today you've put me on the back foot because I'm having to stare at myself constantly, and without the benefit of a lovely hat as well. So I shall mutter away here and think, God, you should have had a shave, Paul. Anyway,
well, we've got similar colour hair, haven't we, on this one?
Well, mine's more natural, I must admit. The peppered of the grey, which makes me look mature and dignified. That's what I tell myself. Okay, that's the lie I tell myself.
I love it.
So Paul Merrick, I think most of the audience, certainly in Clubhouse, but maybe not those who are joining us on YouTube, will know me. But for those who don't, my name is Paul Merrick, for those who know me and those who don't. I have been in the property sector for almost 3 decades as a property developer of both residential and commercial properties, but also a landlord of residential and commercial properties. And as well as that, we've been a consultant for major PLCs in the property sector and smaller businesses and regeneration agencies as well. We've built up a debt-free portfolio of properties, and we've developed, as I say, both residential and commercial properties to fair size scale development. So if I give you an example of that, the 2 developments that I'm working on at the moment, one is a major commercial development, which is 157,000 square feet of retail space with tenants stroke customers like juicing, like Screwfix, like Plumline, and the residential development that we're working on at the moment is 180 flats. So that kind of gives you an idea of the scale of the sort of developments that we've built up to. And that came from a very humble start. So, and we'll maybe touch on that as we talk more about kind of business planning. But I think that gives an overview of Paul Merrick and his almost lifetime in property.
Amazing. So guys, this is just an incredible opportunity for us. And this is kind of like my goal for the year, is to talk to people that have really helped me, have also got such incredible experience that we can all learn from. And I know Paul is incredibly generous with his time on on Clubhouse and sharing what he's done and giving his opinions and just helping people along the way, because we all go about our journey in a different way. In fact, Paul and I were touching on, we all have different skill sets to start with as well. So it's, do please take advantage of asking questions. So so I've just seen Gareth has just said that he's new. This is just Clubhouse is purely a voice social media platform, but I am actually posting this live on Facebook, and it will also go onto YouTube. So you will have an opportunity, if you feel a bit more comfortable actually watching a video, then you will be able to do that after that. So but thanks for the question. Okay, well, let's just jump straight in. So as I said, what we're going to do is Paul is going to give us a little bit of feedback, a lot of feedback hopefully, on business plans and business planning, and then please do guys ask any questions, drop them in the chat box, and after sort of half an hour we'll open up and see if anyone wants to come up on stage, and let's really have a good network. And during this, do feel free to look at everyone's profile. So this is a networking event, so take advantage, go and see who's in your area, who's doing the same kind of things as you, who you want to catch up with. Do like and follow those people, and make the most of it. So a lot of people go into a networking group without a plan. Try and think of having a plan to help you in this group. So Paul, so let's jump into this. So how did you originally sort of get into networking, to planning? I know a lot of us are told I remember when I very first started a business many years ago, I came out of the corporate world and I wanted to start up a gluten-free online cake business. And I was told that I needed a business plan, and it was a fairly painful process, if I remember. And since then, I've had to do it a number of times since, and it's not that much easier. So what made you sort of be this real advocate for business planning?
Well, let me take you back a long way. I was just thinking there, we're live on YouTube and we're live on Clubhouse, so I get to make my mistakes now in stereo. It's fantastic. So let me take you back a lot of years. Let me take you back 45 years. So I started my first business, which wasn't property, but I started my first business when I was 15. And I kind of realized that I didn't really have a business. I was a guy, selling some stuff. I didn't really have a business. So I decided at the age of 18 to go and take a business study course at college, which I think is one of the best things that I ever did. And obviously, when you go to do a business study course, one of the things they say is, where's your business plan? And I thought, I don't have one of those. In fact, I don't know what one of those looks like. And I've certainly never written one. So they gave us a kind of template business plan, and they said, right, go away and put the details of your business in this business plan. Now, I'd been in business 3 years at this point in time, and I was a tad cocky because I was I'd left home and I was making money, and this lecturer was going to tell me how to run a business, right? And I was making money. I was doing my own thing. So I wrote the business plan and I took it up thinking I'd be the head of the class. There you go, there's my business plan. And he looked at it and he went, it's wrong. And I went, it's not wrong. You haven't got all your costs in. I said, I have got all my costs in. Go back and look at it again. So I went back and I sat down. I've got the phones, and I've got the cost of insurance. I've got the cost of the vehicle. I've got the cost of my premises. And I went back up. I've got all my costs in it like that. And he said, you're wrong. Go and look at it again. And I'm not proud of this. I swore at him and said, it's not wrong, right? And he said, where is your salary? And I'd forgot to put my own salary in. And that was my introduction to business planning. I made a mistake, and I made a huge mistake. That's not a small mistake. That's a huge mistake, right? So So I went away and I spent that whole year in that course and learned a great deal from that man. And, you know, maybe in different clubhouses, we can touch on some of the things that I learned in that business study course. But certainly one of the things that gave me was the ability to write a business plan. So I then went away and I wrote a business plan. And there was a really interesting thing about the existing business at that point in time that I had, which I thought any profit was good. You know, if I can make profit on this thing, I'll buy it and I'll sell it because I'm making profit. And what I learned from writing a business plan is you should have a minimum profit, a profit that's worth doing something for. And that minimum profit for me turned out to be in that particular business, and in every business I've run since then, incidentally, Emma, is 25%. I have a 25% margin. If I can't make 25%, I don't do it. And writing that business plan and coming out of there and then changing the model of my business to a 25% margin, and I didn't touch it if there wasn't 25% margin, did two things for me, Emma. Firstly, it stopped me running about like a headless chicken, because what I was a busy fool. I was a very busy fool. Any money looked good, so I was just running about like a headless chicken, and I focused on the deals that I did and left the deals that I didn't. That tripled, I'm going to say this again, that tripled my income in a year.
Oh, my word.
So I thought, there's something in this business planning. I like this business planning. This works, this business planning thing. It's a real pain when you're doing it, but it actually works. So that's when I was introduced to and started business planning when I was 18, which is a number of years ago, Emma.
Amazing, amazing. And I love that. So why, I mean, you've sort of touched on it, you know, so obviously you went on a course and that enabled you to sort of become au fait, understanding it. Somebody was able to kind of point out where your errors maybe were, because, you know, anyone starting something from afresh, you're potentially going to miss things out. But it does seem like an awful lot of work. I mean, a lot of us, when you've got your plans into place, you've thought through everything. Do you really think that it's necessary to do all that hard work to have a business plan, or do you think, you know, you can just run it from your head, write a few things down and be able to move forward?
I've got several answers to that question, but let me answer that question specifically about property, because we last year wrote a book that was released at the beginning of last year on writing a business plan for property. Because back when I got into property, which is 30 years ago, I looked around for a template for a property business plan, and there wasn't one. Frankly, there wasn't a template. There was templates for other businesses, but there was lots of aspects in those templates that weren't relevant to property, and there was things that were relevant to property that weren't in the template. So we sat down and we wrote a template, which is part of the book. You know, the book's two parts. I think you've actually bought the book, Emma, and it's two parts. One's the actual business plan, the template, and one's how to fill it in, right? And what I like to think that we did in that book was we tell you in that book all of the things that lecturer told me all those years ago of how to go about filling a business plan in. Because it's easy somebody giving you a business plan, but most of us, I certainly at 18 had no idea how to actually fill that in. And that's what the book does. It says, you know, chapter by chapter, this is what you want to look at, this is what you want to fill in. So what was the benefit of doing that? And it is lots of work. What was the benefit of doing that to our property business? Well, I decided I was going to get into property, and because every other business since I was kind of 18, I wrote a business plan for, and I was kind of in my early 30s when I got into property, I thought, I write a business plan. That's what I do. It was just obvious to me. And I sat down and I wrote a business plan, and that business plan had two parts to it, if you like. One part of it was to get funding, and the other part of it was to be my roadmap, so that I knew what I was doing, so that I was clear on where I was going. Because property's full of shiny pennies. Does that make sense to everybody? You know, it's kind of like, oh, I could do this strategy, or I could do that strategy, or I could do this model, or I could JV with that person. And it's all full of shiny pennies. And particularly when you first get into it, there's so many things that you could do. I mean, I can probably, if we sat here and we had the time, could come up with 100 strategies, business models inside property. So which one do you pick? And how do you stick with it? So my business plan told me which one to pick and how to stick with it. So that was really valuable. And the other thing was I went to the bank with this solid business plan, thick business plan talking about all of the details. And they gave me what they call a hunting fund, which was a 6-figure hunting fund where I could go and buy any property I wanted. So I didn't have to go through the mortgage process. I didn't have to have valuations on the properties, nothing. I only had to tell them what I'd bought. And that was, considering that some of the stuff that I bought was what some people may call quite high risk. I think if I had to go through the standard process of getting mortgages, I simply wouldn't have got them. But because I had this hunting fund, I could just go out and buy what I liked. Like I couldn't buy a Ferrari. I did ask, but I wasn't allowed to buy a Ferrari. But I could pretty much buy any property that I wanted. So the two benefits to me of business planning are, one, it's kind of my roadmap, my boss, if you like. It tells me what I should be doing. And two, it gave me a hunting fund.
Wow. And when you were going through with that, getting this hunting fund, as you called it, or getting funding, I mean, was this kind of via a big sort of presentation? Was there lots of questions and answers, or was it just handing over the business plan and, there was the odd bit? How did that kind of visually, for us to understand, how did that look like?
So I mean, hunting funds are still available. The main street, high street banks are harder to get them off of now, but there's certainly commercial lenders out there that are still doing hunting funds. But the hunting fund, I've got to be honest, it wasn't the most onerous of exercises. The business plan was solid. If you look at our business plan book, there's 19 separate chapters. So there was 19 bits of the business, or 20 bits of the business, that we went into major detail in. Right. So this wasn't a 3-page document. This was more like a 33-page document. And it explained the answer to just about any question that they had. But I also did, I wouldn't call it a presentation, but I would say I did a meeting with the then bank manager and went through it so that if there was anything from the business plan that he didn't understand, I could kind of fill in the gaps. But to be honest, I think that's one of the things that's really good about doing a solid, detailed business plan. I've been professionally speaking for 12 years, but 30 years ago, I wasn't nearly as confident in front of a camera or in front of a microphone as I am today, or in front of a bank manager as I am today. So at that point in time, it was quite daunting to meet the man from the bank who was either going to, rubber stamp my business and give me a whole bunch of money, or tell me to get lost. Right. And I was quite concerned about that at the time. I can remember it vividly. Right. And the fact that he could get 90% or 95% of the information out of the business plan made my job much, much easier. Whereas I think I would have got very flustered if I'd have had 5% of the information in the business plan and he had to get 95% off of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's like these kind of dragon's den, the angel investors. You see people, getting very tongue-tied, and you can totally understand, can't you? But if you have everything very solidly already presented in your pack, or however it is you've got it, then it gives much more clarity and much more confidence in knowing that the detail is already there. I mean, that interesting thing you talked about, the sort of the 19 parts, and each of those parts, is very, very detailed. Because as you said, and that was really key, a lot of us may have, and I've certainly done it before, where I've had a business plan and it's only run into sort of 3-4 pages. And actually what this needs to be is this kind of complete and utter sort of roadmap to get there. But with this roadmap, and I think this is where your method seems to be quite different. As far as I can see, is quite often, and what I find when I see other people's sort of roadmaps in a property business plan, is that they make these business plans before potentially that they have all the information or all the knowledge or the wherewithal. Because then what happens is quite often within a very few weeks or months, that business plan has completely changed. Whereas I know you had a very strong upfront route to, especially when, like, for instance, giving an example, where to go and find your properties. So what advice would you kind of give people who are, let's say, starting out, but you know, have got a route and think that's what they're going to take, but it might change along the way? Or how did you become so focused that you were able to keep to that path, whatever?
I think in property in particular is the industry that I see this most in. I've worked in many industries over the years, but I think property, people are deal focused, project focused, rather than business focused. So the biggest mistake I think a lot of people make is they see a property for sale and they think, oh, that's a good property. Now, how could I make that work for me? So could I turn that into a buy-to-let? Could I turn it into an HMO? Could I turn it into some kind of commercial let? You know, what can I do with it now I've bought it because the price is right? And we have never, ever bought property on price. We've bought it because we have a customer that our property is ideal for. Now, in the early stages, I did property trading. So you would think as a property trader, to kind of build some money up, I did property trading. Now, you would think as a property trader, you would buy anything that seemed like the right money. But that meant I had to go out and find 100 different customers. So, yeah, I bought this commercial property, you know, that's got a specific use, and it's a great price. But I've now got to go out and find out how many people want to use that property. Whereas what we did was we found customers, avatars. This is the type of customer I sell to. I know an awful lot about this customer. And this is what this customer wants to rent, or this is what this customer wants to buy. Now I go and look for the product. See, I think the question you're really asking me, Emma, is what is my focus? My focus is the customer. It's not the property. Property to me is just a product. So the ethos of our business is people, process, property. People, process, property. People first, the process next, and then the property. And I think an awful lot of people who get into property are property, property, property. Oh yeah, we need some people and we might need some process. We're in a people business. So I was looking from day one at my customer. And if you look at our business plan, which I hope you have done, seeing you bought it, Emma, then you will see there's a lot about your customer avatar. Who's your ideal customer? How do you market? How do you find that customer? How do you market to that customer? Right. And that's both in property buying and selling as well. Because what really surprised me when I started to talk to other property people was they didn't have an acquisition strategy for the product. So in any business that you go into, you know, if you sell widgets, right, you say, right, where do I buy my widgets? It's the first question that you ask. Where do I buy my widgets? And can I get a constant supply of these widgets? Right? It's great finding a customer that wants 2 million widgets, but if I can't buy 2 million widgets, that customer's no good to me. So one of the first things you do in business is you say, where do I buy my widgets? And what I find in property, particularly for people new to property, they think the acquisition strategy is going on Rightmove. And I've always thought that Rightmove was the wrong move.
I like that. I like that. So when you're talking about looking for your customer and your customer avatar, so if for instance, you were doing, you know, serviced accommodation or something like that, so are you literally talking about that end customer avatar, or are you looking at more an in-between where, you know, it's maybe you know, a management company or that would take that on, or a hotel company? Where is it? Is it literally that end goal, that end avatar?
It's all. It's everyone, right? Everyone in our business is a customer, right? So we have bought from some, as you was alluding to at the beginning, we have bought from some major PLCs, we've bought from the NHS, we've bought from the MOD, we've bought from the government, we have bought from local councils, we've bought from utility companies. And although I am spending money with them, they are still my customer. And I view them as my customer, right? The customer that I think most about the initial set of a business is the person who spends the money. So if I was going to do, we don't do serviced accommodation for varying reasons, but if I was going to do serviced accommodation, I would say, right, who's actually the end user, right? And how do we separate our offering to that end user. What's our differential? What's our USP? I don't really believe in USPs because there's very few people with a unique product or service. Unique meaning nobody else ever does it, right? That USP is a bit of a misnomer, to be honest with you, right? But what's your differential? What makes you different than everybody else? And why should the customer spend money with you? If you boil down a business plan, you answer 3 key questions in a business plan, Emma. One is, who's the customer? The second one is, what's my product or service? And the third question, which is by far the most important question, is, why should they buy it from me? So, who's my customer? Be very clear on who your customer is. You know, my pet hate is somebody who says, and I say to them, who's your customer? You know, if I came in to do consultancy with you as a business consultant and said, I think we can make your business better, Emma, right? And I said to you, who's your customer? And you said, everybody or anybody, I would be really disappointed. Because I think we've got a lot of work to do, Emma, right? Because everybody's not going to buy your product, right? And I don't know who anybody is, right? So let's focus that down. And the more you can focus down to knowing exactly who your customer is, the much less money you spend on marketing. And when you get that target message correct, it's very simple to get across to your customer, this is the right product / service for you. So that then builds the product. See, what most people do wrong in business, period, whether it's property or other, is they say, here's my product, now I'll find the customer. And now I'll convince the customer you should buy my product or service. Actually, what you do is you say, who's the customer? What product or service do they need? Sell to a need, not to a want. What does that customer need? Now let's design the product to suit that customer. And now let's tell that customer the most important thing of all, why you should buy from me. So a big fancy business plan with all of these paper pages and all of these chapters and all of this different, information in it really answers 3 questions. Who's my customer? Who? What do I sell? What's my service or product? And why should they buy it from me?
Yeah, I love that. Sell to a need and not to a want. And interestingly, I do networking each week, and one of the premises is to sort of say a specific person, and literally a specific person within a business that you're looking to speak to. But inherently each week it comes up, people come up with, I'm looking for, anyone who's a property developer, or I'm looking for, and it's kind of like, you're really missing a trick. And I really like what you're saying. It's about kind of niching down, becoming very specific. And I love that. And in fact, last week I was, doing a bit of mentoring, and I don't know what it was, but those 2 days, everyone was just surrounded by these sparkly, shiny pennies. And quite often, in fact, one lady, absolutely lovely lady, I said, what's her goal? And she said to get this deal done. And I kind of was a bit frightened. And I said, well, deals can come and go. If your whole goal is around this one deal that you literally have just found, you're really going to be disappointed. It's now finding it, what type of things are you looking for to enable you, and you're going even further. And I love that, sell to a need, not to a want. And I think that that was a fabulous line there. So I really love that. So just with regards to this, so okay, we've talked about, I'm still just trying to get down to the basics of why we should do these business plans, because inherently I would say, I don't know if there's some kind of percentage, but I think people who do in inverted commas, so to speak, a business plan compared to those who make a roadmap and who really know what they're doing, where they're going every step of the day, every step of the way, I think is very different. So just to go back and ask a kind of another question that may enable people to be more interested, I suppose. And by the way, can you please pin the link to your book when you get a moment on Clubhouse? What would be, do you think, the financial benefit from putting in all this work that you've put in for these business plans, and we're talking obviously the property business plans now, rather than say those intellectual benefits? Have I caught you while you're doing your link?
Two things at once, then I'm a man, for God's sake. I can't multitask. Don't try and make me do two things at once. If you ask me to put a link up, give me an opportunity to put the link up, for God's sake.
I'll let you do that. I'll let you do that.
I'm far from that talented. So I'll answer the question and then I'll put the link up.
Perfect.
Why have a business plan? Because a business plan's hard work. You know, it is hard work, and the more accurate and detailed you want that business plan to be, the more work it's going to be. There's a fact of life, right? You know, I remember speaking to somebody. I do some angel investing as well, and I remember speaking to somebody just before Christmas, and I said, right, send me a copy of your business plan, and he was like, I don't have a business plan, but I'll write one tonight. And I was like, no, you won't write a business plan tonight. He said, okay, then I'll have one to you by next week, right? And he did. He sent a business plan next week. And to be honest with you, my 14-year-old son could have done better, you know, in 10 minutes than he'd managed to do in a week, right? And that's because he didn't want to put the work in to the business plan. And he called me up and he said, have you had a look at the business plan? And I said, I'm frankly, I'm not interested in investing in you. And he said, why? I said, because if you can't put the time and effort into doing a business plan, why should I ever believe that you're going to actually put the time and effort in that it takes to run a business? Because you'll know, Emma, it takes a lot to run a business. It takes a lot of emotional and physical commitment to run a business. And if somebody shows in the first instance they don't have the level, I love business plans because if you sit down to write a business plan, and I'm saying this to most of the people out there, and you can hear it or not hear it, it's your choice. But if you sit down to write a business plan and you're finding that too much problem and too much hassle, believe me, the chances of you having a successful business are very, very slim. Because if you think writing a business plan is a hassle and a problem and time consuming, you want to actually try running a business.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, when you said emotional, it kind of hit a raw nerve there for that moment. I think, yeah, there certainly is a business is a roller coaster, and I'm certainly finding more and more that I think when you first start out, for me, certainly there was a lot of emotion around it, because there are naturally things that are going to go wrong. And, you know, whether it's through your wrongdoing or just through, you know, just what happens is just always going to happen. Whereas now, a few years down the line, I kind of know that they're always going to come. And it's more kind of how I can keep a very calm sort of way. And it's almost having that faith that, you know, they're going to come, but also knowing that you're a fantastic, you know, problem solver, so to speak. So look, I think I've popped in the link for you, Paul. So Martin very kindly put the bits down. So we've already put the link in for you, Paul, if that's okay.
That's wonderful, because I'm technically thick. To be honest with you, I hate technology. I absolutely hate it. So, I do appreciate that.
No, thanks, Martin.
Yeah, it's at the top of the room. Very well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. You're a superstar. I
appreciate the help. All concerned. I would have been in it till at it till Wednesday probably. I think. So let's go back to the kind of the point of the business plan and why it's so beneficial and why it's been so beneficial to us. I think it is a roadmap for yourself. So one of the things about being your own boss, and I'm going to say this particularly to people who have previously been employed, right? If you've previously been employed, somebody tells you what your tasks are for the week or the month or the year, right? And then you go out and you fulfill those tasks. When you're self-employed, which I've been since I was 15, I've worked 12 weeks for other people in my life, Emma, but not consecutively. And can you imagine employing me, Emma? That would be fun, wouldn't it? I'm a very good consultant, but I think as a PAYE employee, I think I would be a bona fide nightmare, right?
I think I have to say no comment.
Very good consultant, though. If you ever need a business consultant, I'm terribly good at that, right?
Exactly.
Because I kind of bring something to the party, but as an employee, I think I lack, right? So if you've been employed, you are used to that structure of this is what my job is. When you're self-employed, that structure doesn't exist. Your job can be when you woke up this morning, or whatever you wanted it to be and whatever you chose it to be, right? And the problem with that is there's a great deal of freedom in it, but that freedom can be a real problem because we can, I talk about the business plan like a roadmap. So if I was leaving Glasgow today and coming to London, right, London's the direction. You know, going to London's a goal or a vision. But actually, to get to London, what I need is when I drive out of my drive, I need to know whether I'm turning left or whether I'm turning right. I need to know not just the direction that London's in, I need to know the road to London. Now, in business, it can be very easy to end up in Carlisle, Aberdeen, Inverness, Wales, and Dundee to get to London, because there's so many different ways that you can go. And what a good business plan does is it's a roadmap. It's a motorway directly from Glasgow to London. And it stops you taking the A roads and the B roads and hitting the dead ends, because you do all of that on paper. I remember speaking to one of my friends when we first started out in business all of those years ago. And he said, I came back with this, you know, I'd been to my business study course and I was really kind of caught up in business plans, as I am incidentally, you know, almost 40 years later, right? I'm still caught up in business plans. I still think it was a great thing, right? And I've took these business plans to him and he said, I don't need a business plan, right? Now, our business is worth multiple times what his business is. And you can say that was business acumen, Paul, or your skill or whatever. I don't believe it was. He has been down so many A roads and B roads and hit so many dead ends because he didn't plan the road to the motorway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really, really fantastic feedback. And so I know you spoke about the chap that had asked for an investment, and obviously he said, oh, I'm going to do it tonight or next week. And there's it's kind of a bit of a comparison. I talk a lot about finding your gold mine area, and I kind of equate it to doing kind of an A-level project. You know, you're not talking about an overnight thing here. This is a big thing, because inherently it's the foundations of your business, and it's, you know, it would be a part of your business plan, like we're talking about. So, you know, I think that kind of will put a bit of it into context in my mind, how big a business plan really needs to be. So just as a bit of feedback, I mean, how long, it might be how long is a piece of string depending on kind of what you're doing, but what would you say, you know, people should put aside to be able to move ahead and get their business plan done? How long would it take?
That is a really interesting question. I would fit those into three different categories, right? How much do you know about the current industry that you're in? So if you're working inside of the property industry already, right, and you're working on a daily basis with a lot of this information at hand, and you know a lot of this information, so you know who your ideal customer is, you know what you've decided what your product or service is going to be, and you know what your USP or differential is, and you know all of that before, and you've got evidence, not just you think it, but you've got evidence and research to back that from your existing job or from stuff that you've been maybe looking at for a year or two, then a business plan, if you've got all of that information to hand, maybe a month. But if you are saying, right, I'm going into a brand new industry tomorrow morning that I know absolutely nothing about, so I don't know who my ideal customer is, and I've done no market research on that. I don't know what the product or service is, because I can't know that if I don't know who the customer is. And I don't know what my USP is or what my differential is. I would say somewhere between 6 months and a year minimum.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. And in fact, in fairness, when I very first wrote my initial business plan for a non-property business, yeah, I remember it taking me a month, you know, probably a month or two, and going back and presenting it And it was in, I don't know if they still have it, but it was in the days where you had the local government were doing kind of free not counselling, but free business support.
Yeah, business gateway.
Yeah,
different names in different regions, but business gateway. I used to be a business gateway advisor.
Exactly. And I remember, so probably something like you, Paul, I went in so excited and I was like, yeah, I've done all this hard work and I've got it. And I exactly the same. I took it in and he was just like, yeah, you can't open a business with that. I was like, what do you mean? I'm literally, I'm gnashing my teeth here to open this business. I'm ready. I'm all prepared. And he would just sort of shook his head and just said, no, you totally are not. And it then did take me, numerous more months to get to the position where I was given the green light, so to speak, and I had everything in place. So yeah, I can completely kind of relate to that and to those timescales. Look, time is really pushing on here. I can see we've got a couple of questions. Abdul has raised his hand.
Just before we move on though, Emma, because I do want to make a point on the point you've just made.
Yeah,
right? Because
please.
there might be people in the audience sitting there and thinking, 6 months or a year is a long time, Paul, right? And I want to put this into some kind of text here, if you like, some kind of context, and say to you, right, if you come to me tomorrow morning and you say, Paul, I want to be a window cleaner, right? Is it going to take you 6 months or a year to write a business plan? Perhaps not, right? Because what are you investing? You're going to buy a ladder, a mop, and a bucket, right? So what have you got? 500 quid invested, right? And if it goes wrong, well, you've got a spare ladder, you've got a spare mop, and you've got a spare bucket. You can put them in the garage and clean your own windows. If somebody comes to me and says, I'm going to invest in property, Paul, and I'm going to start a property business, depending on where you are in the UK, that's either tens of thousands of pounds, hundreds of thousands of pounds, or millions of pounds that you are actually either investing or signing your name up to. And if you are sitting there and thinking, really, I'm going to run a £500,000 or £750,000 or £1 million property empire, and I don't have the time to write a business plan for 6 months or a year, I would think again. Because I'll tell you what, if you get that wrong, you'll be paying that money back for a lot longer than a year. I just want to make that point. I just want to emphasize, we're not talking about, becoming a window cleaner here. We're talking about multi-millions, hundreds of thousands of pounds, tens of thousands of pounds at absolute best possible losing.
Yeah, amazing feedback. So guys, we're just gonna really open up the floor now. So we'll invite people up. I can see a few people have been asking questions. So Hamish, I wonder if you want to raise your hand. I'll just invite some people. Let me see if I can find those people who have specifically asked questions. Oh, we've got already some fantastic feedback. So Louise can't wait to read the books. Gareth is wanting to find out if we had you needed both books. I've said yes. Some great analogies, great advice. Amit and Gareth have said so Snita has asked, are you able to share a template of a business plan? So Paul's read a book, or if but that the reason that we've got Paul on here today is, for me, there's just so many business plans, but Paul's, I think, is literally the only one out there who helps you with regards to property. So it is a real unique kind of USP there. So have we got everyone? So I'm actually now I'm working from Club Deck on my computer, so I'm having to sort of navigate rather. So Hamish, thank you so much. You asked a question. Do you want to you come up on stage? Do you want to ask it direct, please?
Yeah, hi Paul, and hi Emma, how are you doing?
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, good. It's good. Really interesting listening into this. And Paul, I must say, I have got your book. I've started reading through it and started the process. But it's always nice to be able to speak to the author and get a little bit of clarification on a few things. But yeah, you keep sort of touching on finding out who your client is, getting to know everything about them, and what their needs are. I was just wondering if you could sort of share a little bit of an insight into how you feel, who your clients are and what you feel their needs are, the ones that you're trying to sell to.
So we have 4 elements to our property business, Hamish. So we have the first element, which is obviously the key to our business, if you like, the bread and butter, the thing that pays my salary every week, is mainly commercial property that we lend out. So our portfolio, rental portfolio, is 60-40, 60% commercial, 40% residential. So our key customer in that is obviously and in terms of income, it's probably 80-20. So although 60% of the properties are commercial, probably 80% of the income comes from those commercial properties. So in the rental business, that's our key customer. That's not to say that we don't care and focus on the residential customer. We do, and we have our own unique selling points and differentials in that market as well. But we focus very much on a particular type of customer in the commercial market. So our commercial properties tend to be small industrial units, 1,000 to 3,000 square feet. We have some bigger ones, but the vast majority is 1,000 to 3,000 square feet. It tends to be mom and pop businesses, so owner-occupier businesses who are in that kind of small SME up to kind of 5 employees, and that's our core customer. And what we like about that customer is that's not only that person's business, but it's also their life. So we have engineers, we have electricians, we have plumbers, we have chaps who fix washing machines, we have tyre repair companies, we have vehicle component exporters, etc., that are all in that space. And we know that clientele very, very well. We understand that clientele very, very well. We understand that they are not looking for the poshest or the most upmarket unit that looks spectacular, because most of those actually aren't customer facing in their units. They're kind of supplying a service outside of the unit, and the unit is somewhere to work in and work from. So the quality of the properties that we have don't have to be Class A commercial properties, because that customer doesn't want to pay for a Class A commercial property. So we know the customer very well, we know their budget very well, we know what they're comfortable with, and we know what their needs are. So having learned that by doing lots of market research, then that's what we build. So can I give you a brief example of that? I'm sure we're running short of time, but I'll give you a brief example of that. One of the small industrial estates that we built a number of years ago, what we did first, and this is putting customer first, is we didn't go and find a piece of land and say, we're building an industrial estate here. What I did was I went round all the local industrial estates with a little clipboard, and I knocked on the businesses' doors. And it's one of the great things about having commercial customers is you can literally knock on their business door. And I said, look, can I ask you some questions? And about 50% of them said no, and about 50% said yes. And I said, right, you're renting premises here, right? Tell me what's great about here, and tell me what's lacking. Tell me what you want, what you would change, you know, if you had a magic wand. And then we collated that information. It probably took me about 6 weeks to do the market research. And then we collated that information, and 3 things came back, Hamish. We want our rents to be cheaper. That was the first thing. And that was almost unanimous. We want to be in a good location to get onto motorways, etc., because this is not a great location. We've got to drive halfway through town to get to the main access routes. And we want security. These industrial estates you can drive on any time of the day, and you can you can break into a unit and nobody's looking at it. It's not the whole unit. The unit might be secure, but the estate isn't secure. So we went away, we collected that information. And then what I did was I then went looking for premises. We found a just over an acre site, 1.6 acre site of existing buildings, 60,000 square feet of buildings. It was already walled in, so we kind of built the walls up a little bit higher. We put these massive gates on it that I actually copied off of a prison gate. So it was very daunting. And it closed, that gate closes. It was within 2.5 minutes of link to a motorway. And because I'd bought that directly from an administrator, I'd bought it at a very, very good price. So what I did was I passed on that cost saving that I had directly to the customer. So I then went back, Hamish, to those people and said to them, thank you very much for your help. It was great that you helped us, and we've now built an industrial estate. Let me tell you about the industrial estate we've built. Thanks to your input, it's cheaper than where you currently are. It's more centrally located, and it's more secure than where you currently are. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for your input. And guess what happened? a heck of those customers came and said, can we come to your industrial estate? So we were actually almost at full occupancy from the day we opened the door, Hamish. Because what I did was I gave the customer exactly what they wanted and not what I thought they wanted.
Oh,
yeah, wow, okay, that's no, that is really interesting. It's something that I have to think a little bit about. I think to change it over into the residential market, which is what I'm looking at now. But it is, you know, interesting idea. I guess the same principles would still work. I mean, I knock on the doors of some of the residential homes and ask them what they like and what they don't like and what they would change. But yeah, really interesting insight. Thank you, Paul.
I'll just do, we don't have much time, but I'll give you a brief overview and feel free to give me a call in the background, Hamish, with a bit more detail if you want. But let me talk about our residential for a split second or two then. So what we did with our residential was our USP in residential is that fact that we don't market openly in the open market. All of our customers that have came, and we had over 100 tenants at the height of our business, all of our customers have came through networking. So I commit the mortal sin of renting to friends and family, which everybody tells me you shouldn't, but it's worked quite well for 30 years. And what happens is that one customer kind of introduces another customer. So our USP in terms of our residential is the way we market it. We've never on the put a property, or never had to in 30 years, with over 100 tenants, had to put a property on the open market. So we are very, very good landlords. We do our job very, very well. And we've had our tenants. We just lost a tenant last week. She was 87, Janet Marie, and I phoned our stepson the day that she passed away. She passed away at 6 a.m. in the morning. She'd been with us for 22 years.
amazing.
And I would say that one tenant, Janet Marie, has probably brought us 25 tenants over that time. So probably almost more than a tenant a year, just by personal recommendation.
Wow.
By getting it right for the first customer, then you get it right for every customer. There's an old adage in business that I 100% believe in, which is don't build customers, build fans. Don't build customers, build.
Amazing. And I'll just jump into that if I might as well, because Robin, I have tried to invite you up, Robin, but Robin is associated with this question. How do you verify whether your ideal customer will be actually willing to pay for your product service rather than just liking the idea of it?
So if you take the commercial property one, for example, we asked them what would it be an ideal kind of rent, right? And we took a mean of that, all of those numbers, and come up with an ideal rent. And when we first got involved in residential, what I did was properties that I physically didn't have, I put adverts up for 2 bedrooms at this price and 3 bedrooms at that price. And I spent a little bit of my money on advertising, not for actually properties that we had, just to find out where the market was. So how many people answered the 3-bedroom ad? How many people answered the 2-bedroom ad? How many answered it if it was £1,500? How many answered it if it was £1,200? And what I did was I established the market by kind of asking the customer what they were really comfortable paying. So the more people that responded to an advert, the more I knew that was the target market. And again, one of the things that we do in our, because I'm a very customer focused human being, one of the things that we do is if I happen to buy a property 50% below market value, then, which I have been privileged to do in my time, and because of the places we buy properties from, which is not the open market, I then directly pass that on to my client. In other words, I don't charge the market rent for that property. I charge a percentage return on the amount of money I've paid for it.
Wow, very, very interesting. Did that answer your question, Hamish?
Yes, no, that's been fantastic. Thanks. That's definitely given me a bit of an idea of a way forward to do my customer search.
Fantastic. So yeah, so we've got lots of people saying, yeah, great insights, great answers, and things like that. So we are coming to the close of the hour, and I feel quite proud of us, Paul, that we've managed to do something very technical, and this is now my second week that I've managed to do this. So congratulations, I think, to both of us. There was a yeah, we still have some teething so sort of teething things to go through, but I think we've done very well, Paul, and thank you for throwing yourself into doing this. So just before we close to an end, it is clearly a big, potentially mammoth mountain in front of some people, and you did point out before we came on that you've been quite surprised that maybe other people don't have this kind of drive and determination that you have, and there can be challenges in remaining focused. What kind of advice would you give to people to enable them to make the decision to, and I would advise you to go and get your book, because it's, it's not an expensive investment, and you're not making it all up, are you? You can just follow a pattern, or follow your direction. But to keep going, to really put their all into it, to ensure that they get that business plan done and they remain focused. Do you have any kind of insights into that?
I think it's in the business plan itself. I think, people have quite often commented that I'm quite a focused human being, and I don't feel that focused, to be honest with you. But in business, I'm quite focused. I think where the business plan helps is how long you have to be focused for. So if you write a business plan and that takes a bit of focus, it does, but you only have to be focused for the time you're writing that business plan. And then the business plan is the focus ever after, because all you have to do is revert back to it, and it tells you what you should be doing. It's a roadmap. It's your boss. It tells you, most people write a business plan and put it in the bottom drawer. If you come to my office, Emma, you'll find 2 copies of our business plan. One sits on Margaret Ann's desk, who's my wife and business partner and co-author of the book, incidentally. And one sits on my desk, and we follow it religiously. Now, it's not that it's a document written in stone, because circumstances change and pandemics come along, and you have to kind of look at it, but you never lose track of the goal. You never lose track of the vision. And I think without a business plan, I, like everybody else, could lose track of the vision.
Amazing. So are you saying with that, just as another sort of point, sorry, I can't stop, is that how often would you come back and reassess your business plan then? Is this kind of a 6 monthly thing, a yearly thing, or just when things clearly change? How often would you come back and look at
the business plan every 6 months and just make sure that everything that's in it will still work because of outside circumstances? What I'm not very good at doing, and don't want to do, Emma, and don't suggest anybody does, is change your business plan because you've found a shiny penny or you've found a new property. But if outside circumstances have changed, a pandemic happens, right? The interest rates change, whatever the outside factors that you have no control over, if they affect your business plan, then you have to rejig it. And that doesn't mean rewrite it, it just means rejig it, right? I've got to be honest, in our experience, if you write a solid business plan in the first place, few outside factors affect our business. I think the only one that severely affected it is a pandemic. And as smart as I like to pretend to be, Emma, I couldn't predict a pandemic. That wasn't in my business plan. It wasn't, and in 2020 there'll be a pandemic. I kind of missed that one, right? Interest rate changes and things like that, yeah, they're built into your business plan, because that's about working out a substantial profit margin. If you've got a 25% profit margin, a 2% change in the interest rate, it's not going to make any difference. You don't have to rejig your business plan for that. A 5%, if you've got a 25% profit margin, as we have, a 5% change in interest is not going to make any difference.
Amazing, amazing.
So it's really, I only revisit it for the big outside issues, political changes, etc., that I have no control over.
Well, you don't have control of the political issues.
I do my best. I mean, I remember speaking to one of my friends recently, and he was talking about football, and I said, I don't know any footballers at all. I said, but I can name all my politicians in my area, from the local councillors through to the MPs, and I know most of them on first name, and I have them on dial. In my mobile phone that I'm speaking on at the moment, I have the mobile number of the head of Glasgow Planning. That's much more important to me than the head of Glasgow Rangers.
Amazing. Yeah.
But that's a 30 years career.
Amazing. Amazing.
I realise we've gone over time, and I want to come to a hard stop. But I would like to make I want to make this one point, just as my closing sentiments, whatever your closing sentiments are.
Please do.
We've been relatively successful. I left home at 15 with £15 in my pocket, and we now have a multi-million-pound debt-free portfolio, and are doing developments at 23 and 30 million pounds, which is not bad from a standing start of 15 quid. And I came into property with £40,000. That's what I came into property with. And if you were to say to me, Emma, what's your success? What's the key to your success, Paul? This is what I would say in relation to what we are talking about and what I wholly believe. The two things that I learned to do very, very well that made a big difference in my business, my career, was I learned to write a business plan, and I learned how to follow a business plan. And if you said to me, what's made the difference, Paul, between you and a lot of your peers that haven't been as successful, I would say I learned how to write a business plan, and I learned how to follow it. Both being equally as important.
Wow. I mean, that is a fantastic close. Thank you so much, Paul. So guys, I hope that's been really, really helpful. You've been really interactive on the chat room. Thank you for that. That's been exceptionally helpful to me. I've written masses of notes as well. And I know that, it's incredibly valuable. And I loved also the way that it enables you to keep focused, keep niching, and not allowing all those shiny pennies to pull you away, which is just so common, probably in any business, but it certainly seems very common in the property world. So Paul, thank you. I am back again next Monday for serviced accommodation question and answers, and we actually have a mindset coach on next week, a chap called Lee Robeck. So we will, after making all of these goals, it is incredibly important for us to keep our mindset on track. So that will be next week, so you'll be able to tune into that. So again, everyone, thank you so much for your time. Paul, you've been an absolute superstar. I really, really appreciate you coming on here and sharing all that incredible information that has, come from a lifetime of learning, not just a few short years. So we really, really appreciate that. So brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to attempt to shut everything down all at once and see if I can manage to do that. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Take care.